How you doing? If you love Canada, hit that like button. If you love Trump, hit that like button. If you are an American, smash the like. Share this video. This is for you, the American people. I love Americans. I love Canadians way more. Let's talk about Canada, shall we? This is going to impact America very, very, very badly. I am so sorry to say. Let's listen.
Tough day. It's a tough day for Ontario and for Canada, just as much as it's a tough day for the United States. Because, well, there's no question President Trump's tariffs on Canada will hurt us. They will also hurt Americans. U.S. markets are on the decline. In fact, the S&P 500 has already wiped out over $3 trillion in value. Factory floors and assembly lines across the American Rust Belt will start to close. American workers will be out of a job. American families will be poorer.
Zoom in,
This is not
bro.
the outcome anyone wanted. Over the past few months, we've taken a strong, united Team Canada approach. The federal government, provinces and territories, municipalities, unions, business leaders who have all made the case. We're so much stronger together. I've spoken to governors, senators, congressmen and women from every region, both Democrats and Republicans. They know, they tell me, these tariffs are a massive mistake. We could have stayed focused. We could have poured our effort into making Canada, the U.S., the two richest, most successful, safest, most secure two countries on the planet. Unfortunately, one man, President Trump, has chosen chaos instead. Now, we have no choice. We have to respond. Earlier this morning, Prime Minister Trudeau and his team announced retaliatory tariffs. They have my full support for a strong and forceful response. Tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. As they do, the federal government needs to ensure it's getting revenues from its tariffs to impacted workers and businesses as soon as possible. To support the federal government's efforts, Ontario will also launch its first round of retaliation. Starting today, LCBO, the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, will begin removing U.S. products from its store shelves. And as the exclusive wholesaler, American brands will no longer be available in LCBO catalog, meaning other retailers, bars, and restaurants in the province will no longer be able to restock U.S. products. This is an enormous hit to the American producers. Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider, seltzers, and spirits, including more than 3,600 products from 35 states. As of today, every single one of these products is off the shelves. Also, starting today, all U.S.-based companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement. Every year, the province and its agencies spend about $30 billion on procurement, alongside our more than $200 billion plan to build infrastructure. U.S.-based businesses will now lose out on tens of billions of dollars in revenues. They only have President Trump to blame. I'm also urging all 444 municipalities to do the same, and I'm thrilled to see some are already stepping up. For example, Mayor Patrick Brown in the city of Brampton and many other cities. As part of this government-wide procurement ban, we're going one step further. We're ripping up Ontario's contract with Starlink. It's done, it's gone. We won't award contracts to people who enable and encourage economic attacks on our province and our country. Alongside federal tariffs and the measures my fellow premiers are bringing forward, this Team Canada's opening response. We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on. Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well. I'm encouraging my fellow premiers to follow suit. Friends, I know you're worried. You're concerned about the future. I want you to know I will fight like I've never fought before. I will do whatever it takes to protect you, your families, and your communities. We are watching the real-world impacts of these tariffs, and we will be there for you. We will spare no expense to protect Ontario workers. We'll retrain impacted workers for new jobs. We'll retool companies for new customers and new markets. We'll reshore supply chains to bring good jobs back home. And we'll rebuild roads, highways, bridges to keep people working. Led by my friend Premier Tim Houston, we're breaking down costly internal trade barriers. And we need to cut the red tape to end the delays that are blocking projects with enormous economic potential like the Ring of Fire. Canada and Ontario did not start this fight. We want to work with our American friends and allies, not against them. We said we'd never start a trade and tariff war with the U.S., but you better believe we're ready to win one. Friends, I've always been straight up with you. The coming days and weeks will be hard. Businesses and families will feel the pain of this needless fight. But together, we're going to stand up for Canada. We're going to get through this more united than ever before. Together, we're going to protect the true north strong and free. Thank you, and may God bless the people of Ontario.
We will now take questions from the media. Please come to the mic and state your name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
This morning, the Prime Minister said he now believes that what Trump wants is the total collapse of the Canadian economy. That will make it easier to annex us. Do you agree that this is what Trump wants?
Yes, I agree with the Prime Minister. That's what President Trump wants, to dismantle, close down plants, take food off our table. But I can tell the Canadian population and the Ontario population will fight like we've never fought before. The difference is the federal government, we have the lowest debt in the all G7. And Americans, the U.S., have one of the highest debts. And talking to the American people and all the elected officials, no one is agreeing. When Warren Buffett comes out and says this is basically saying it's a disaster, along with every other CEO down in the U.S., this will affect Americans. It will hurt Canadians, but it's going to hurt Americans. The assembly lines in the auto sector will shut down within 10 days, I predict. Hopefully they won't, but I'm predicting they'll shut down because of the trade that we do back and forth, the supply chain, that parts, as you've heard many times, goes back and forth up to 8 times, each time hitting a 25% tariff on both sides of the border. I'm almost positive the assembly plants will shut down on both sides of the border.
Premier Mark McAllister from City News.
Hi, Mark.
You've recognized the fact that this is going to hurt on this side of the border as
Yes.
well. The Prime Minister said that his priority first is to try and keep these tariffs from lasting any longer than they need to, not necessarily managing what can be done to help Canadians and deal with their loss. I'm just wondering what you can do right away to help people in terms of resources, perhaps cash.
I'll be sitting down with Prime Minister Trudeau this afternoon, along with the premiers, We do have a plan, so no different than the pandemic, very similar. We'll be supporting the people, we'll be supporting companies, and we're making sure that we diversify our trade, bring in more opportunities from around the world. Folks, we have 51 countries that we have tariff-free agreements with. We need to unite with them. We've brought over $70 billion of business from around the world to Ontario, but we need to continue. What we have to blame, we need to look in the mirror. Over the last decades, we've taken the U.S. for granted as our number one trading partner. We need to speed up approvals on critical minerals that the world wants, the Americans need, and we have. We can no longer take 10 years to get shovels in the ground. This is what we need to do on many areas. We need to move quickly. We need to move quickly on infrastructure projects across Ontario. The federal government, they need to move quickly on making sure that when they go out for procurement, they're Canadian companies. They have to speed up the procurement. One example is the 400 light armored vehicles in London with General Dynamics. We can't hold on to these purchasing agreements. We need to move them forward to give people certainty. We need to start building roads and highways and bridges. We need to start building rail right across the country. We need to build the pipeline east, west, and north. We should have done this decades ago. Again, we need to move quickly on this because this isn't the end of Donald Trump. We're going to be dealing with Donald Trump for another 4 years of unpredictability, threats to all or their neighbors, but right around the world. So we have to make sure we diversify and make sure that the provinces, municipalities, and the federal government buy Ontario, and secondly, buy Canadian if we can't make it here in Ontario. And again, I mentioned it the other day to the retailers. Across Canada, we buy $800 billion worth of retail products, no matter if it's grocery or tools or other things. We have to make sure we onshore these products. And if the big 5 retailers or 6 retailers in the groceries, you can't find it anywhere else, we will make it here in Ontario or other places around the country. We need on the shelf talkers. I love, by the way, the apps that are coming out. But little Ms. Jones that are walking down the aisle, she's not using that app to scan every single bag and every single product. They need to put it very clearly on their shelves. And I'm asking for their support. And if they don't do it, I will legislate it. You put your price, you put the Canadian flag beside the price. And the other ones, I need every product from the U.S. to have the price in an American flag. You don't have to worry about any other products if they're coming from around the world. We aren't battling against the rest of the world. The battle is against President Trump. And I always emphasize, folks, I talk to endless Americans. I talk to endless elected officials. It is not them. Don't blame the American people. It's Donald Trump to be blamed for this.
Second question to follow up on that. You said an immediate surcharge on electricity being exported, 25%, but you said you will not hesitate to shut off power as well. At what point does that happen?
Well, this is going to be a long battle, and we have to keep our ammunition dry for the next round. As the Commerce Secretary came out and President Trump has said, another round is going to hit us on April the 2nd. And I'm highly recommending to President Trump, don't force our hand. You underestimate Canadians, you're making a massive mistake. We're resilient, we're proud, and we're strong. And we will survive, and we will continue to thrive. We'll get through this together.
Richard Southern, 680 News Radio. Premier, no doubt many Ontarians are happy to hear that you're ripping up the contract with Starlink, but can you tell them today what the break fee is? How many of their tax dollars are still going to Starlink as part of the break fee?
Well, I'll be getting that information, but it's principle, Richard. This is principle. To cancel Starlinks to President Trump's right-hand man, Elon Musk. And isn't it ironic that he got educated, part of his education was at Queen's, and he's attacking the country and the province that gave him the opportunity to go to Queen's University? They should be embarrassed that he went to Queens. He should be embarrassed to attack the people that took care of him for a number of years with his family.
Premier, will the LCBO be selling the American alcohol it has already purchased? And if not, is there a financial cost attached to that for Ontarians?
We're going to store it for what we have right now, and we'll wait until the tariffs come off the table. And then, depending on where we're at, we'll restock the shelves. But in the last, a few days, we've been sending a letter down to the governors and all the suppliers of the states saying that these tariffs continue, they're coming off. And as I always use the bourbon as an example, but there's many. But the governor of Kentucky said, don't touch our bourbon. And I said, Governor, that's the first thing we're going after. We're going after their bourbon. I can tell you the people in Kentucky, they're great people. Do anything, but don't touch the bourbon. Well, we're the largest purchaser of bourbon in the world for Kentucky bourbon manufacturers. They're done. They're gone. And I want to thank Senator Mitch McConnell that stood up. One of the few senators, and the other senator slipped my mind, from Wisconsin, that actually stood up against Donald Trump. I encourage other congresspeople, other senators, other governors to stand up to Donald Trump. He's two votes short in Congress. If he loses 2 votes, he'll be short of getting his tax breaks. So the congresspeople in the red states, you need to speak up for your people, because your factories are going to be empty. They're going to be shut down. There's going to be unemployment. Inflation's going to hit, and it's going to hurt the American people. You need to speak up against Donald Trump and speak up for your people. That's what we do here in Canada.
Hey, Premier Barbara with QP Briefing. So when you called the election, you said you needed Ontarians' approval to pass your economic support package to protect the economy. But now that the tariffs really hit us, you can't get this done until mid-March when the legislature is back. So I'm just wondering, do you regret calling this election now?
No, that's totally inaccurate, first of all. I'm going to set the record straight. We can do anything right now without going back in the legislature. And secondly, Elections Ontario Act cannot swear in MPPs till March the 17th. Our cabinet is active right now, and we can do whatever we need to do to protect the people of Ontario.
So the other question I have, the Prime Minister said he thinks that the tariffs are not about fentanyl, and that's just the legal justification behind what Trump is doing. So I'm wondering, what do you think the tariffs are about?
Well, number one, I believe in strengthening our border. I've believed in that for the last 7, 8 years. But was it a smokescreen? Absolutely, it was a smokescreen. Did we listen to President Trump about tightening up our border? We absolutely did. We've spent over, I think it was $1.5 billion, somewhere around that range, with the federal government. We have Operation Deterrence with our OPP, and I want to thank our OPP. I want to thank Commissioner Creek for putting a great team of 200 officers together to patrol the borders, making sure that we have the drones, we have the helicopters, we have water vehicles, we have ATVs, boots on the ground. And I just want to thank the incredible job all our police services across our great province and our great country will always have their backs.
Hello, Premier. Stephanie Hughes, Bloomberg. As far as your jurisdiction goes, how will you actually implement cutting off or putting outright restrictions on critical minerals and electricity into the U.S.? What does that process look like?
Well, the federal government is in charge of any export. So we will be working with the federal government regarding, I use our high-grade nickel, that the U.S., 50% of what they use down there comes from Ontario. If we have to stockpile it, if we have to ship it around the world, that's what we'll do. But I'll be sitting down talking with the Prime Minister this afternoon on the process of going through that.
Follow-up question. Canada's biggest points of leverage with the U.S. are oil, uranium, and potash. What do you have to say about the premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan who might be expressing reluctance to put taxes on their products there?
Well, I have absolutely no jurisdiction in Saskatchewan. I consider Scott Moe a good friend of mine. I've served with him longer than any other premier, and I've talked to him. We need to make sure America feels the pain. You know, Donald Trump wants to go after our dairy farmers. Without potash down there, they don't have a farming system. And when it comes to uranium, they're using that to enrich their uranium down in the U.S. for their nuclear energy. Again, I do not speak for Saskatchewan or on behalf of Premier Moe, but I will encourage him to ship uranium anywhere. Everyone wants his uranium. Ship it out other places, because the only other place they can get uranium is in Russia. And I see President Trump cozying up to Putin. What a disaster that is. He attacks his closest friends and neighbors, stood shoulder to shoulder with them in wars and other crises. And who does he cozy up to? But Putin. You got to be kidding me. You know something? The American people don't agree with him, and he will pay the price in the midterms.
Premier Jeff Gray, Globe and Mail, just wanted to clarify on the energy surtax idea. Your energy minister told me yesterday that this requires enabling legislation, so you will need the legislature, and that's at least a few weeks away. So can you clarify the timing on when you could actually impose such a charge on U.S. electricity?
Well, we are looking into it. We've asked Secretary D'Emanuel to come up with a system, anything that we can move quicker on this. Maybe we can regulate it, something. Because I don't always accept we can't. Matter of fact, I hate the word we can't. We can come up with a solution and come up with it immediately, because we need to act immediately.
And I wanted to ask, just following up on something you said yesterday about the $70 billion in investment that your government has secured from companies around the world, Stellantis, Volkswagen, the subsidies and so on. Have you had any conversations with those companies about the current status of those investments, which must be, you mentioned they're worried, they must be extremely worried and tentative now?
It's the word uncertainty, and thank you for that question. It's uncertainty. I know Minister Vic Fideli is working hand in hand with them. I've talked to some part suppliers, and I'll be reaching out to the six major auto manufacturers here in Ontario. It's not just going to hurt the auto workers here. It goes hand in hand because of the supply chain. The supply chain in the auto pack has been around since the 1960s. And as I've said, and with the auto pack, you can't unscramble an egg. You have to make the omelet larger.
Hi, Premier. Alison Jones with the Canadian Press. I just wanted to try and clarify again on the timing of your electricity measures. For the surcharge and for potentially shutting off the supply, are you waiting on both of those scores until more tariffs come in? Are both of those moves contingent on if they implement more tariffs?
We want to do the first part, a 25% surcharge. We have contacted the governors, senators, congresspeople. The letters are going out this afternoon to tell them that's exactly what we're going to do. And if they go further into April, then we'll cut off their electricity. You know, I feel terrible because they're great governors. I know all three of them. I've worked well with them. You know, I've met them all. We've had them to Ontario. They're great people. And I have to apologize to the governors and the American people. You need to make sure you send a message to President Trump. This is hurting Americans. This is hurting his red states. And isn't it amazing he had a mandate to lower cost, lower inflation, create more jobs, and it's working against them. People are going to be losing their jobs. There isn't going to be new jobs. Inflation's going through the roof. And as I told my American friends on the networks, and I changed it from the Canadian to American, but the stock market, I predicted the other day, will go downhill quicker than the American bobsled team. And what's happening? Over $3 trillion. And it's just tanking right now. That says everything. When the market drops, that's the people speaking. That's investors around the world speaking. That's pension funds speaking. And all the CEOs down in the U.S. of the largest corporations in the world. I heard Walmart made a statement, Target's made a statement, many others are saying this is going to be a disaster. Prices are going to go up in the next few days. And isn't this a shame that the two greatest friends, greatest allies in the world, that one man, President Trump, decides to turn their whole country and our country and Mexico into absolute chaos right now. He needs to pay the price in the midterms. If I got to go down there and knock on the doors myself, I will.
And you're banning American companies from future procurement, ripping up the Starlink deal. Are there any other contracts you would be considering terminating, or is that off the table?
I've asked the Ontario Public Service, the deputy ministers and our ministers to go through with a fine-tooth comb and anything, no matter if it's services through the tech sector or any other products, we need to stop immediately. And if they come at us, sue us, so be it. We're standing up for Ontario. We're standing up for Canada, and we're willing to fight in court. This is about principle, making sure that we send a message to Donald Trump, and unfortunately, the American people are going to pay for his actions because they elected him in, and they're going to pay the price. And I want to inflict as much pain as we possibly can until we get to a deal of the USMCA. He says that we can't withstand this. Well, he's going to find out what we can and can't withstand. Sure, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. But I've never seen patriotism like I've seen running wild across the country. When I go into the grocery store and I see people turning the bag around to read where it was made, they shouldn't have to do that. The retailers need to act, and I'll be calling all the retailers, the CEOs, to act immediately on the shelf talkers. You should be able to walk down the aisle and see if it's Canadian or American instantly. And I know, I understand there's some things you might just have to buy, right, out of the U.S. But for the most part, even if we switch our buying power just a little bit, as much as we possibly can, that the Canadian people are doing, I'm seeing it here in Ontario, that's going to put pressure on the U.S. And it's going to put pressure on companies like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Nestle. Those are some of the big companies that ship in a ton of products here. So the CEOs of those three companies and many others, you need to get a message. You need to get your lobbyists. You need to do something and call President Trump and call him out for how he's going to lose jobs in the U.S. because of his reckless decisions.
Hi, Premier. Lorenda Redekop with CBC News. You talked about the auto industry and that those plants on both sides of the border could close within 10 days. I've heard even shorter than that from other people.
Yes.
Is there another industry that you are most concerned about that where there could immediately be those types of closures?
I am manufacturing of all goods. We're an economic powerhouse in North America. We can manufacture anything and everything here because of the skills of the people here in Ontario. So I'm very concerned about that as well.
You've talked about Buy Canadian. We're seeing that from a lot of Ontarians right now. We're also hearing them talk about not wanting to travel to the U.S. I know you have some pretty deep connections south of the border. I don't know for you personally if this will affect your travel.
You know, something that I can't dictate. Like if some family goes down to California or Arizona or Florida, that, I can't control that. And I would say carry on. But the biggest impact that we could have is right here in Canada, right here in Ontario. Stop buying U.S. goods.
I just wanted to clarify. I was talking about your travel, not family.
Oh, my travel. If I got to go down on business, I'll go down on business. If I have to go to Washington, I'll go to Washington. If I have to go down and visit governors, I'll go down and visit governors. Again, I can't tell people to restrict their travel. A lot of people. I'll give you an example because this is a good question. 3.2 million Canadians go to Florida every single year. They own $30 billion with a B, $1 billion worth of real estate. They pay $1 billion of taxes, and they spend approximately $10 billion. And guess what Governor DeSantis says? Well, they'll still come down, and I'm sure they will. But what an attitude! What an attitude! He should be grateful 3.2 million Canadians come down there. And again, I'm not blaming the people, the residents of Florida. They're great people. And I'm not telling people don't travel or anything. But when you're in Canada, do your very best. Very, very best. to buy Canadian products. And as well, in my next press conference, I'll come out with all the cars that we manufacture right here in Ontario, through Toyota, through Honda, through General Motors. I know Stellantis is retooling, as well as Ford. And Volkswagen, we want to continue moving forward, building the largest battery facility in North America.
Hey, good afternoon, Premier Colin DeMello from Global
Hi, Colin.
News. During the election, you had mentioned, or you had proposed something in the neighborhood of $18 billion in terms of economic supports.
Yes.
Can you actually deliver those economic supports without the legislature first voting on it?
Yes, we can. Yeah, I confirm that, Colin. We can move forward and get that done. We're going to be there. I'll spare no expense, just similar to the pandemic. I'm going to support the people. I have the confidence in the people of Ontario. We will bounce back stronger and more united than ever. We've learned lessons here. We've learned lessons that we shouldn't be taking 10 years when there's hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion worth of critical minerals the world want. And we're hitting barrier after barrier, no matter if it's a federal government or other areas. The federal government, when it comes to critical minerals and the Constitution, it falls under the provinces and the territories. Please get out of our way. We need to get shovels in the ground. We need to get these minerals back up and shipped out right across the world and across Ontario.
So can we then talk about the speed at which you're going to deploy those resources? Because part of that was a $5 billion Protect Ontario fund that businesses could draw from. At what point will that fund be available?
We're going to have a discussion today, and thank you for that, Colin. We're going to have a discussion today with the Prime Minister and the other premiers and see what sectors are getting hit the hardest. But I encourage the federal government, all the tariff money needs to go back to the people and the businesses immediately, as quickly as they can, to support these businesses and support the people. And we're there.
Good afternoon, Premier. It's Rob Ferguson, Toronto Star. Just wondering, do you have any other premiers on your side on either export taxing on electricity or other energy, or cutting off altogether? I think maybe Quebec, but I'm not sure.
I've had many conversations. I had one with Premier Legault. I don't want to make it a habit of speaking on behalf of other provinces. Premier Houston is in the next room. He'll be coming out right after I'm done here. You can ask them. You can also get your affiliates across the country to ask them. But I'll be a strong voice as the chair of the Federation this year on our call with the premiers and with the Prime Minister, encouraging all the premiers, no matter if it's BC shipping electricity, Manitoba shipping electricity, Quebec shipping electricity, Ontario shipping electricity, and I'm sure New Brunswick and some other East Coast provinces ship electricity. I can't force anyone. That's going to be up to them. I will encourage them. We have to work as Team Canada across the board. And we have incredible premiers, by the way. I'm blessed to be the chair of the Federation with incredible 12 other premiers, including myself, be 13 other premiers across the province. We have a strong, strong team, and we work so well together.
All right, just on a follow-up, I know you said yesterday that new members can't be sworn in until, I think you said the week of March 17th.
That's what Elections Ontario is telling us.
Okay, so do you have an approximate date for the return of the legislature? Would it be late March, or could it be into April?
Well, we're going to see. We don't need the legislature right now. And by the way, I've talked to Marit Stiles. I just got off the phone with Mr. Schreiner as well. He's a good man, and he's saying let's work together, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate Marit as well.
This will be the last reporter.
Hi, Premier Jack Howan from the Trillium.
Hi.
As you've acknowledged, a trade war is going to hurt.
Yes.
Food bank use is already breaking records even before all this. Is there going to be financial support coming, not just for workers who are laid off or in affected industries, but for people who might be economically already on the edge?
Well, we contribute millions of dollars to food banks. I'm going to encourage our team to continue and enhance that because people will need the food bank. I encourage the majority of all the food comes in through charities and organizations and big retailers and producers shipping a lot of goods. And if you do have a can of soup, or if you have some pasta or tomato sauce or whatever, drop it off at the local food bank. That makes a difference. When you have thousands of people dropping off a couple products to the food bank, it makes a huge difference. And I just want to thank all the volunteers and the workers at the food banks across Ontario and all the organizations that raise money and take contributions of food and then ship them off to the local food bank. I want to thank you. But folks, if you can drop off a few cans of whatever you have in your cupboards, by all means, just drop them off. And as I said before, I know this is very, very small, but the $200 that I got, I'm going out there, I'm going to give it to the food bank and give them the $200 because they know how to spend it and what they need a lot better probably than I do. Before we wrap up, I want to address something about my phone. Folks, I pride myself on returning my calls. I have over 4,038 messages I got to get back to you. Please have patience with me. Don't get insulted if I don't get back to you. They're coming in hundreds, if not 1,000 a day, and I cannot keep up. I'm up till over midnight every single night. And for the people that text me throughout the night, please wait until the morning time, because I have to keep my phone on. And the 4 or 5, I'm lucky if I get 5 hours sleep, the 4 hours sleep I get every night, all I hear is the buzzing beside me. So please, the reason I keep it on is for emergencies, in case there's something happening catastrophic in the province. I respect you calling me, but please just have patience for me to get back to you. I'm doing everything I possibly can to get back to you on my cell phone. But I want to thank you, folks. Let's stick together.
Just one follow-up, Premier.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry to cut you off.
Send me a message on that. No. Oh, boy.
I try sometimes. Ontario regularly sends electricity to the U.S. at negative prices when demand falls here, meaning we're basically paying them to take it off our hands. Yeah. So if you end up cutting off electricity to the U.S., where will the excess electricity go?
I'm having a conversation with the Minister of Energy. I want to reallocate that to our manufacturing facilities to make ourselves more competitive. Let's see what we can do with the additional electricity to lower the cost for our manufacturers that are in a tight spot right now. But I'll tell you one thing, it's not going down to the U.S. if this continues. And I will not hesitate. I want to keep some of our powder dry because this is going to be a prolonged battle. But I hope we don't have to do that. Do you know what I'd rather do? I'd rather ship them more critical minerals. I'd rather ship them more electricity. We want to ship them more. We want to build the Amcan Fortress. But there's one person up there called Donald Trump that is short-sighted on this. And again, the American people are going to pay the price, unfortunately. They're good people. And please, don't take it out on the American people. And I ask you one more thing. Please, do not boo the national anthem in Canada or in the U.S. These are soldiers that fought for our freedoms, our democracies, our sovereignty. They've laid their lives on the line. I had an opportunity to talk to General Romer the other day. What an American hero he is. You know, he sent over a list of some of the items that I'm going to review. But my goodness, boo the referee, boo the players if you want. Do not boo the American national anthem. And to my American friends, do not boo the Canadian national anthem. That's crossing the line. One other thing I want to mention is my friend Wayne Gretzky. He's the most patriotic Canadian there is anywhere on the planet. You know, as other Canadian athletes go down to the U.S., they hand in their Canadian passport and get an American passport to pay lower taxes. You know, I talked to Wayne the other day, and he was so choked up talking to me. You know, he is a patriot. He loves Canada. He never gave up his Canadian passport. So, you know, folks, give the guy a break. Just give him a break. He loves Canada. He loves it like no tomorrow. So I want to thank everyone. May God bless the people of Ontario. May God bless the people of Canada. Now you're going to hand it over to Premier Houston. Fury was in town, I thought too, but Premier Houston. This guy's a champ. He's going full steam on interprovincial trade. And Premier Houston, are you coming in? Oh, here he comes. And the other thing, the best looking premier in the country. What can I say? Thank you, my friend. Don't sip out of my water.
Good afternoon, everyone. What a tough day for our country. Donald Trump is a short.
We all love different kinds of surprises. Funny, fluffy, and romantic. But some surprises are fake. So for NordVPN's birthday, we have something special. A birthday deal that will stop online trackers, detect malware during downloads, and block malicious websites. Protect yourself and your loved ones online. Get NordVPN at 73% off and 6 months free. NordVPN, cybersecurity built for every day.
difficult, Michelangelo, I'm coming through the place. Donatello.